What's up, my friends? Welcome to another episode of the Whole Health with Rob Carney Podcast. And on this episode, we have our guest, Sarah Clark. So the Whole Health with Rob Carney Podcast is a platform to connect with and share the stories of health professionals, personal development leaders, and health entrepreneurs who are making an impact in the world. So when Sarah was 28 years old, she received a diagnosis of premature ovarian failure. She accepted the diagnosis and had both of her children through in vitro fertilization. Years later, she realized the root cause of her infertility was a food intolerance. So she's a certified life coach with accreditation from the International Coaches Federation and a health coach with training from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. She is also the author of Fabulously Fertile, Supercharge Fertility Naturally, Fabulously Fertile Cookbook, and the Fertility Preparation Program. So her fertility coaching program, which includes functional lab testing, supports couples to make diet and lifestyle changes that dramatically improve the chances of a healthy pregnancy and baby. So Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So I'd love to hear your story. Obviously, we just touched on it a little bit there, but what got you into the world of health in general? What made you aware of these food intolerances? Because there's so many different factors that can go into food intolerances. So I'd just love to have you share your story.
Yeah, sure. So in my early 20s, I remember having a regular cycle. So my cycle came a couple times a year. I had in my teens, I had great skin. Then all of a sudden, in my early 20s, I started getting acne. I had a weird fungal rash on my chest, and I had some yeast infections. So first line of defense, I went to my doctor and was placed on hormonal birth control. So that was just regulated my period falsely, sort of mildly improved the acne, but not really. And then had this life plan of getting married at 25, which I did, and then have my children at 28. So just before 28, came off the pill. My cycles were still irregular. And then I went to see my OBGYN, and I was told I had premature ovarian failure or insufficiency, which is a loss of function of the ovaries before the age of 40, and told me the only way I'd ever have children is by using donor eggs. I remember when she grabbed the IVF brochure and told me to go off to the clinic. So I didn't take any time to look at those other health issues that were going on in my body. I didn't get a second opinion. And I didn't even take any time to grieve. I just went straight into action and got on a list for donor eggs. So then we were lucky enough on the first fresh transfer to have our daughter. And our daughter is 19. So this is back in the day when you say donor eggs, people are like, I don't even know what that is. And now, because of the IVF procedures going on at someone on my podcast, Get Pregnant Naturally, and they were taught, they actually had, they have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and the natural siblings to those children are 13 because they adopted an embryo that was sitting on ice there for the last 13 years. So science can do some pretty amazing things. And so, so then I had two embryos left over, wanted to have the kids close together, went back in to the fertility clinic, was super stressed because I wanted to have the kids close together, and that didn't work. So then went on a separate list for a separate donor and was lucky enough to have our son, who's 16. And then really fast forward after I had my daughter, I remember having like 9 colds in 1 year. Every cold went to a sinus infection. I thought it was a great idea to take antibiotics for every sinus infection, completely destroying my gut health. I started getting chronic bladder infections, peeing blood. Again, took antibiotics for all those, became allergic to a whole bunch of antibiotics off of that. The yeast infections became chronic. I had vertigo, toenail infections, dandruff, seasonal allergies, and really my immune system was low. I wouldn't have considered myself sick, though. I was still working in corporate. I was in HR at the time. And, just everything, though, I just seemed to catch, flus and colds as they went by me. So then I wanted to, I decided to take a life coaching course and brought life coaching into the corporate environment. That's when I had my own personal wake-up call, discovered I really loved health and wellness, took a health coaching course. And that's when I discovered I had these food sensitivities. So for me, it was dairy and gluten, took out dairy and gluten. And lo and behold, the sinus started to improve. The bladder started to improve. The yeast infection started to improve. A couple of years after that, did some gut testing, discovered I had streptococcus and fungal infections and H. pylori, and then addressed those. And then really the underlying issue of all of this was chronic stress. And actually going through the infertility side of things, I actually would have said I wasn't stressed because I was like, let's just keep going, keep doing. So the chronic stress piece, I didn't discover any of this until I was 40. So I was fully in menopause. So at that point, I really dedicated my business and time to helping couples that have premature ovarian insufficiency, low AMH, high FSH. So being told typically, that IVF may not even work, or maybe that, it's donor eggs for them, diminished ovarian reserve, helping them either get pregnant naturally, or if they do go to IVF, they're going to improve their chances of getting pregnant with their own eggs, and using the functional approach, using testing.
Amazing. And it's something that I always find interesting, that the root cause of so many diseases and challenges that people are facing are the chronic stressors. And a lot of times we aren't even aware of it until we aren't stressed anymore. And then all of a sudden we're like, wait a second, how long have I been carrying on to that? So obviously you mentioned the food intolerances, those can cause a great deal of stress. And then obviously the challenge of the pregnancy sounds like that was a great deal of stress as well. What did you find were some of the tools that you used to help to remove that veil of stress that was seeming clouding over you?
Yeah, like it was really addressing the food sensitivities. And when we work with couples too, it's one of the first places we start. So we have people do an elimination diet, really taking out the top allergens as the gold standard to figure out if you have a food sensitivity. And then we use food sensitivity testing to then dig into the minutia of, because you could even seemingly healthy foods, if you have a leaky gut or intestinal permeability. I've had a food sensitivity test come back and I was intolerant to all my favorite foods. I wanted to like toss it across the room. But, I continued on, and eventually I was able to reintroduce most of those foods. For me, dairy and gluten are off the chart, so I don't eat those. Most people that we see a theme of like non-celiac gluten sensitivity. So even though they're testing negative for celiac, and there's a lot of false negatives for celiac, they were only testing for four proteins in wheat. There's over 60. So a lot of people come back like, oh, I'm fine with celiac, but it may not be celiac, or maybe it's a false negative and it is, but you could still have non-celiac gluten sensitivity. And people were in the middle of that gluten-free craze, and people are like, is it an allergy? I'm like, if gluten makes you feel like garbage, like why would I go to a restaurant and pay to eat something that's going to make me feel like trash? And
Right.
so yeah, it is an allergy. And we have people that come back and they'll if they once they take the food out and then they reintroduce it, it's like, oh, wait a minute, now gluten, it'll immediately give them like digestive issues. Immediately they get hives. Immediately, and other times it's 2 or 3 days later. So for me, gluten has done a whole whack of things now. For me, it gives like, now it's like joint pains, or it'll give a little bit of acne, or it'll go to digestive issues, which I had no digestive issues ever. Like stool was fine, everything was good until I took the stuff out and started to heal my gut. And now when things are off, then the digestion will go off. So yeah, like it was a process for me to figure out the food sensitivities, and then to dig into those other gut infections, because if you've gone dairy and gluten free for like 60 and 90 days and you're still not better, you still have those, in our case is like you're still not pregnant, digging into testing, it really will fast track it and really helps to shift the needle. So using the functional testing, we use food sensitivity testing. So in the States, we're using the Zoomer test. It's doing a deep dive on wheat, dairy, corn, lectins, so like the skin on some fruits and vegetables, like peanuts, corn, whatever it may be. We're going to look at your health history, determine which one we want to do. And then also an IgG test. So look at those delayed food reactions. So the foods you have on Friday, you get headaches on Monday, you never connect the dots. So that we use that. And then we do Dutch testing. So looking at your hormones using urine, and really digging into, which pathways are the hormones going down, what's happening with your cortisol levels. So it really gives us a good clue, because it's over the course of 2 days. And then we do that stool test. So it's looking at your stool, so it's looking at the DNA of your stool. And the majority of people we work with have either like a parasite, a bacterial infection, a fungal infection, and we see H. pylori being passed back and forth between couples. So lowering your stomach acid, I had that, and it was like, I had no symptoms of H. pylori, no GERD, like none of those digestive issues. My husband always did. So I'm like, because I got the test first, and he's like, oh no, you gave it to me. I'm like, well, I don't think you gave it to me. So we still argue about that. But yeah, so it's kind of basically you're eating all these, nutrient dense foods, and you can't absorb all the nutrients. So We see that a lot. And then we do the hair tissue mineral analysis test to really dig into, like, you could eat this, organic, nutrient dense diet. Maybe you're not absorbing all the nutrients. So we see that a lot. You're well fed, but malnourished. But so for me, it was, addressing the food, looking at the gut infections. And yeah, and because I didn't focus on my preconception health, both my kids have food sensitivities. Maybe someone wouldn't have known they have food sensitivities. My daughter had tubes in her ears. She had her, this is before I knew, she had her tubes in her ears. She had her adenoids out, her tonsils out, both my kids. She had a green little nose for, like, I don't know, for like years when she was like 2 and 3. And then she had like bedwetting for like longer than you should. And so when we moved around and yeah, chronic sinusitis, to the point where at the one point they thought that she was losing her vision. It was like just like so impacted in there. And so lo and behold, took out dairy and gluten, and that went away. And then for her, it also went into acne too. So what teenager wants to have acne? So that kind of kept her on the straight and narrow. And my son, it went more to moods, affected his neurotransmitters. So when he has gluten, it's just is not pretty. It's like anger, irritability, and yeah. So we're it's still a work in progress. But then I didn't focus on that preconception health. So both my I wasn't in good shape, so that's predisposed to both my kids with C-sections, which they weren't able to get the beneficial bacteria from the birth canal. So yeah, it is all like, it's a work in progress. But once you know about the functional side of things, and you're like, it's not like the conventional side where it's like the pill for an ill. You can actually get to the bottom of things and heal yourself. So it's empowering.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one thing that was really a big piece for my journey is I used to work with a food inflammation testing group for about 2.5 years. And we tested for like 132 different foods with a blood test and
Yeah.
watched the levels of inflammation. And so my job was basically to analyze those and make meal plans for people based on those. Cause some people would say, what do I do? I can't eat chicken. I can't eat gluten. I can't eat dairy, eggs, all the normal things they'd eat. So one of the common things that I found as well is that when people switch to organic diets as well, some of these intolerances would either really subside or completely go away. And so I've really come to the realization of, I studied sustainable food and farming in my undergrad, and just the amount of crazy amount of pesticides that are used in our foods, that a lot of times the intolerances and the allergies are actually to these chemicals. A lot of times they're not even the food themselves. And of course, gluten and dairy are highly inflammatory foods, which a lot of people do have reactions to in general, but you add pesticides and chemicals in that, and now you've got a recipe for disaster. So one of my biggest realizations is that I can do raw dairy a couple times a week. I can't do pasteurized dairy, and I'm okay. If it's organic raw dairy, I can do it usually twice a week and I'm okay. Same thing with gluten. Anytime I get more, I get a little congested and some of that brain fog. So there definitely are symptoms, but I found that when it's high quality, I can still enjoy that gluten and dairy, which I do like, but it has to be in moderation. And one thing I think that's really important as it relates to gut health is that our soils are so depleted as it is. There is virtually no nutrition left in a conventionally grown farm. So if we're eating non-organic foods, and then we're also taking loads of antibiotics, taking loads of chemicals, inflaming the gut, again, we're just creating, it's amazing to me how resilient the body is, that we can survive a lot of these things, and the amount of damage we do. But as it relates to gut health, that's a big focus of mine as well, is really educating people on healing the gut, because that is a really challenging topic to really dive into, because so many of us have had years of destruction on the gut. So I'd love to hear some of the tools that you recommend for people that are having infertility issues or just health in general. How can they use some practical strategies to start to rebuild that gut microbiome?
Yeah, and all the practices that we, obviously I'm working with it's typically female factor infertility. There is a male factor as well, but predominantly female factor. And even if the partner is saying my semen analysis is fine, there's always things we can do to optimize preconception health. But it's you can take the same approach for anything really. But so with the functional approach is like that basic approach where you're using the testing and then you're digging in further. So like with the gut piece of it, and just back to your, actually with the farming and all the yeah, like go organic, don't have non-GMOs, sorry, don't have GMOs, not non-GMOs. Yeah, don't want genetically modified foods. You want to make sure all your food is organic. If that is like too cost prohibitive, to me, I'm like, it's very expensive to go through infertility treatment, like thousands and thousands of dollars. So switching over, you could do the top 12, that are the dirty dozen that are most highly sprayed. But I'm like, just get an organic box. Like they're so easy to get these delivered to you.
Right.
Organic meats, they taste way better. You'll pat yourself on the back every time you get it. And why are we, chronic disease, autoimmunity, all this stuff, as you know, is like spiked over the last, I don't know, when they started introducing glyphosate into our food supply. We're in the middle of a huge food experiment. It's a wonder why, sperm counts are going down. Infertility is on the rise. Like you probably listened to Dr. Zach Bush talking about we're actually about to make ourselves, extinct if we don't do anything. And he's very hopeful that we can do something. But with our soil and what has happened, I actually interviewed. Not interviewed, people came in as clients, and they're both farmers, and they're both struggling with infertility. We did, all their health history, did the testing, and did the hair tissue mineral analysis test. Their like heavy metals were off the chart. It was like all like linked to pesticides and herbicides. And this guy, that he was actually going in and repairing farm equipment. So he's inhaling all this diesel and all this stuff. And it was like, I was like, my God, like there it is in black and white, where our farmers like, and like the rise in like cancer and all that kind of stuff. And now like, these are like young, like 30, like both around early 30s. And like, what, and they're struggling and they're inhaling all this toxic, anyways. But yeah, from like a gut health piece, we, if you've made those changes to the diet and you're not pregnant yet, it's like digging into, do you have an infection? Because if you've got, like, don't need to get a parasite for traveling around the world. You can get it in North America. Right. And we regularly see people with like multiple parasites, bacterial overgrowth. They're not absorbing their fat. They're so that GI map test is the one. And we don't have an affiliation with any of the labs. It's whatever the best test is available at this point. And so we believe the best one for gut testing is the GI map. Looks at the DNA of your stool and really gives us a good starting point. And then a lot of times we'll do the testing, and you want to make sure that then we develop a protocol. So looking at hormones, looking at your health history, doing a blood chemistry review as well. To then it all tells a story, because then it's not to diagnose, but to educate. You can see in the blood chem review where, oh wait, there's some infections, or wait, there's a blood sugar imbalance. Oh, why is your cholesterol off? Why is your vitamin D so low? All these things. Why? Conventional side of it is like, oh, let's, supplement, let's, address, the why, give you a statin or something like that. So it is to, look at all of that data, develop a protocol. Our protocol is typically 3 to 4 months average. It could be longer, it could be shorter. And then after that, we'll retest to make sure whatever it is we found has been eradicated. Because a lot of times these little gut bugs like to bury down after you come in and kind of try to attack them and eliminate them. They're going to hide. And so there's those biofilms. So there could be more underneath it. So as you start to remove the layers of the biofilms, then on your retest, there still could be more. Typically, it's maybe another 30 to 60 days. So you start to eradicate that. And then people's symptoms, like stuff they've had for years. I just did a case study on, sent out to my email list with like one of our couple. She had premature ovarian insufficiency, secondary infertility, was told it was, donor eggs for her. She was like, both her and her partner were like, super high stress jobs. They both graduated from, MIT. They, in the tech space, and high stress. And then like she had migraines, anxiety, sinus issues, like chronic stress, worry, headaches. And then we did all this testing, and started to heal her gut, and then the hormones started to balance. Her mood started to improve. Her partner made the changes as well. And then within 7 months, she actually went because she was like, I want to get this done, blah, blah, blah. I'm going back to the clinic. So around the 7-month mark, she went back to the clinic. She was getting ready to do an egg retrieval, and they went in and they tested, and they're like, something's here. And she's like, what? And she was pregnant. So wow. Pregnant naturally when being told, sorry, you're done. Yeah, so it is that layering approach. I typically work with like that type A busy professional. And so they're like in a panic, but it is like we believe in a mind, body, spirit approach. So you can do, all the testing, we can get the supplements, but you've also got to work on your thoughts. You need to work on your spiritual practice, God, universe, higher power, whatever it is for you. That's equally as important. Like equally as important. You'd like digging into your sleep and slowing down. Yeah, because I typically get that like doer, let's get it done. It's equally important just to slow down as it is to take the right test and supplements. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the clearest picture to me is that we are so sympathetically dominant in terms of our nervous system that our body has no intention, no desire to think about reproduction when we're in this survival mode. It doesn't make sense. Our body is doing what it was designed to do, which is survive. And if you're in that constant state of stress and surviving, not knowing if you're supposed to fight, flee, or freeze in this moment, the last thing your body's going to be worried about is procreating. So by getting into this parasympathetic mode, like you said, getting people to slow down, focusing on their thoughts, focusing on their spiritual practice, I think that right there, I can imagine makes a huge difference, without anything else, just getting stress levels down. And I think another big challenge that I see a lot of the people I talk to in the work that I do is that the testosterone levels in men is terribly low. I think I saw somewhere that the average 30-year-old man today has the testosterone levels of a 70-year-old man just like 50 years ago. Crazy numbers that we are just destroying the testosterone in men. There's a lot of estrogens that are coming from plastics. And not only just women, which I think it's easy to say, oh, women are the ones having infertility, but no, it's men are having it too. It's both sides of the coin. And so I think that it's just the imbalance of hormones in both men and women. And so lowering stress is going to help to do that balance. Like you said, getting our thoughts on point is going to help us to balance. And obviously, living a sedentary lifestyle where I believe I was talking to someone recently that said the World Health Organization used to recommend 20 to 30 miles walking a day in the 50s because that was our lifestyle. We were on farms. We were walking just all day, every day. And now it's recommended 2 to 3 miles a day. So
Crazy.
so the parameter of health is shifting. So now you can say, oh, your average if you walk 2 to 3 miles a day, and that includes, walking around the house and not just walking straight 2 miles. So the parameters of health are just getting lower and lower and lower. And what is now average doesn't mean healthy, and average doesn't mean normal. So with that all being said, what are some tips and techniques that you have used in your own healing journey to get yourself into a balanced state and to find more time in that parasympathetic mode than the sympathetic mode?
I was just doing a podcast interview yesterday, interviewing someone from my podcast about getting yourself into that parasympathetic state. And she's actually, she's she has an essential oils company, and really talking about specific blends you can actually put on the vagus nerve to help activate that. And a lot of times we're diffusing, but these are blend and making sure it's organic. There's a lot of essential oils out there that aren't, but the essential oils can be part of the toolkit, but like if someone's feeling super anxious and not able to even, get out of that sympathetic state, that can be a really neat way to access that, really regulating circadian rhythms. We talked about blends for circadian rhythms. For like we will recommend for our clients. So basically everything, I try to walk the talk is my, if I'm not going to recommend something and I haven't done it. So, and so we have to get our people in kind of in that parasympathetic state. First of all, it's all like addressing the physical side of stressors, which is the gut infections, the food sensitivities, the environmental toxins, like you just talked about, having people switch over to their non-toxic personal care, non-toxic cleaning, and not to panic. So people want to just throw everything in the garbage, and then that causes more stress. As each thing expires, you replace it with a non-toxic option. That took me years. I don't know why. I couldn't figure out the personal care stuff. Everything itched me, irritated me. The essential oils that I use, I couldn't. Anyway, so I finally found stuff that works. With other people able to do that quite quickly. Like the water that we're drinking, our tap water's got 300 pollutants or toxins in it. So making sure you're getting, filtered water. the air that we're breathing, and the EMFs. I have a number of podcast episodes I've done, especially for men. Do not put the phone in your pocket, like keep it away from your body. There's EMF blocking underwear now. You can have little beanies and stuff, like Get Lambs is a cool, do you have that? Yeah. Get Lambs is a cool one. And then, never put the phone to the ear. Like it
Right.
basically the EMFs, in going right in your brain. And what a lot of us are sleeping with our phone beside our head, and all those EMFs going in there impacting our male and female fertility. So that piece, and then the mental emotional stress, like doing things to, like, self-care. Yeah, it's the buzzword, but you want to be able to, it's not about mani-pedis. It's about saying no. It's about, where can you take time to meditate, to breathe. And if you're not feeling meditation, you can incorporate mindfulness into your, daily routine. When you can mindfully walk, like, especially if you have a dog, you can look to see what your dog's doing. She's not thinking about all the stuff in her little head. She's just smelling the dirt and looking around, looking at the birds. And so that can be like being present on your walk if you're doing that daily. Digging into, like, I don't know, I'm doing a spiritual course right now where I'm working on like grounding cords, and which I was, I kind of dabble with in the last little bit. So, but it's just neat to be able to like take a grounding cord and like throw it down at the center of the earth, and take all those, there's emotions or feelings you have, and you can put a color to them, and then you can just toss them all down the grounding cord. So you're not, if you're in a helping profession, if you're taking on other people's energy, being able to, make sure you wash that off of you, because sometimes it can be, especially in stuff's going on in the world, if you're like looking at the news, which I highly suggest to go on a 7-day news fast, and then hopefully keep yourself off of that. Because if you're triggered and, going on rants because of the news, that's not good for you. But like, and really, I've never had issues with sleep, but I see a lot of people that have like sleep issues. So like really dig into the sleep piece. Like, we have people use castor oil packs, like in the first half of their cycle, which are really helpful to kind of get you. It helps with food sensitivities, gut infections, and also like oxytocin, and get you in that parasympathetic state. You can add some essential oils to the pack too, actually, to help with that. But yeah, it is kind of, especially with infertility, there's a lot of triggers. People are triggered by seeing like a family, if it's secondary infertility, by seeing baby bumps, people, announcing pregnancy and gender reveals on Instagram. So there's a lot of triggers, which then could send you down a rabbit hole of jealousy and envy. And so being able to, get honest about that, get support for it, educate those around you, start with a small circle of people, like educate how you want them to handle announcements, how you want them to handle things. Sometimes it's like people won't say it, and then the person feels like, oh, they didn't invite me. But a lot of the times we don't even know what we want. So think about what you want, how you want people to handle it, and educate those around you. And that's how we start the conversation. Because people, that innocuous question, kind of like, how's the weather, similar to, hey, do you have kids, could send people like that are trying, literally either they're going to blurt something out, that I've been trying for years and years, and how dare you, or they'll just say nothing and then go into a complete spiral after. So it's like having something prepared for those, innocuous questions, which, people aren't thinking. So there is, to change the conversation around that. But it is like, so for me, it's like constantly working on, like, if I become irritable or a pain in the ass, it's because I haven't done something for myself. Like I have done too much. I haven't, maybe I haven't got enough sleep. I have not done, I like to read. So maybe I haven't been, had a chance to do some reading, or like whatever I like to do. Or it might've been stress that, like, for me, I usually think I process things quickly. Turns out I'm very slow. Like it'll be like something happened 2 days ago, and 2 days later I'm like, oh damn. And then it'll just kind of hit me. And so, having someone to talk about that, having some support, and you don't need to, because I would have said I'm fine. When I was going through infertility, I'm fine. I don't need anybody. I'm great. I keep going until, my health took a nosedive, and my hair's falling out, my thyroid fell apart. It was a complete wake up call, and you can't keep going on like that. So it is like your body's, she or he is like whispering to you, and if you ignore the signals, starts shouting at you in the form of disease. So it's like, stop and say, okay, what's going on here?
Right. Yeah, our body, as we said earlier, is very intelligent, and the symptoms that we're experiencing are just, it's the body saying, hey, buddy, you're going to pay attention. I'm giving you a sign. You got, nope. All right. You're not paying attention. I'm going to give you another one. And then eventually it just keeps giving you more and more until you physically can't take it. And then you have to address it. And one thing I think that is really important that you noted there is the fact that if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not showing up to the world in the best way that you can. And that's where the whole idea, like you said earlier, of self-care isn't selfish. To me, self-care is essential. If I'm not, my routine is walking every day, reading every day, and expressing gratitude. Having a gratitude practice every day. Those are my three pillars I've been working with the past few months that have really been impactful. And I'm always playing around with my different routines, but that's what I'm working with right now, and that's been very effective. And I find that in the days I don't do those things early on in the day, there's today maybe a little antsy, and I'm just feeling ungrounded because I haven't taken care of myself first. So another big thing is the sleep that you mentioned. I think that sleep and stress, in my opinion, are two of the biggest challenges that we as Americans, I think, just as a first world challenge that we face as people that are having technology. And you mentioned the EMFs. That's another big area that I don't think we really know the extent yet of the cause that they're doing. But I can say that we are sending electromagnetic frequencies throughout our body all day, every day. And in lab tests with animals, when we're having non-native electromagnetic frequencies from technology, Wi-Fi, whatever, there is disruption going on. The signals in the body is not communicating the right way because now there's other inputs that are disrupting that. So like you said, a big thing I always recommend is, one, get as much technology out of your bedroom as possible. Two, turn the phone off, or if you use it as an alarm, use it on airplane mode. And like you said, don't put the thing by your brain. Don't wear the ear pods, which are basically, me and my friends call those brain grenades because they're basically just blowing up your brain and doing whatever else is there. And just, when possible, get outside, get out of your electrical box that we're in. Cause this is when I laid down to take a nap yesterday, I can just hear the electric buzz because my room is silent. I can just hear that little buzz. And it's like, even though it's 30 degrees outside, I was tempted to like go lay down outside and take my nap because it was like, I can hear this buzz going on. But there's so many different factors that we can dive into, and I know that we could go on and on for hours on this, but what are some of the first steps that you recommend for someone that is having trouble with infertility? What would you say is kind of the 1-2 punch or the 1-2-3 of where to start? Because I think it can be very overwhelming, very daunting, and a lot of people can feel a lot of shame associated with that they're not good enough. They don't want to ask for help because asking for help is a big challenge for a lot of people. So what would you say are the first few steps that someone would take to overcoming that infertility challenge?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, for have you and your partner do the elimination diet together. Again, it's the gold standard to figure out if you have a food sensitivity. You're taking out the top allergens, which are dairy, gluten, soy, corn, peanuts, and eggs, and processed sugar. Take them up for 10 days, systematically reintroduce them. If you go to my podcast, Get Pregnant Naturally, I walk you through the whole thing of how to do it. But you and your partner, even if it is female factor infertility or male factor infertility, you guys doing it together. So you're not a short order cook. You're not cooking, one person's cooking one thing, one person's cooking something else. So you guys are doing this together for your future baby. So looking at the elimination diet and then tweaking that further with food sensitivity testing. I do that. Number two, like making sure you have enough water. You need to have 50 to 75% of your weight in ounces in water per day, which is usually more than we think. I used to go around peeing once a day, thought that was great. No, it's not. We want to make sure you're hydrated. So is essential for the cervical mucus. So for the sperm to make it to the egg. And so many of us are dehydrated, making sure your water is filtered, a minimum is a Brita, although the Brita is not taking out, some of the fluoride and the chlorine, and other chemicals. Like we like a Berkey.
Yep.
There's a bit of an investment for the Berkey, but the water just tastes like, heaven. But start with filter, don't have tap, don't have, bottled water with the BPAs and the plastics. So get yourself a stainless steel water bottle or a glass water bottle, keep it by you, 50 to 75% of your weight in ounces. And then, I would dig into sleep. like sponsor my podcast is Blue Blocks. So it blocks out the blue and green light from your iPad, your phone, your TV, all of these things that impacts the blue and green light impacts your melatonin for both male and females. So having blue, so as soon as the sun sets, you put on your blue blocking glasses. It's like you're at a campfire. You end up, going to bed earlier instead of being up till 12 or 1, having that second wind. You want to be in bed the best time, the most optimal time, like the best sleep is between 10 to 12 p.m. So getting your sleep between those hours. If you or your partner is snoring, you can go to Snore Lab app, track your snoring. You don't want to be snoring. That impacts your cardiovascular health and your overall health. So Snore Lab's a cool lab to things so you guys can laugh at each other if one of them is snoring. It's kind of fun. Sleep cycle, you can go and track your sleep to see how deep your sleep is. But really, like with the sleep piece, to really like declutter your bedroom, make it dark in there, have it just for intimacy or sex and sleep, not anything else. If you're like working, like try to move your desk out of there, your laptop. And take your phone out of your bedroom. Like really dig into those, like optimize the diet, drink more water, and then like Uber into sleep. Most people I talk to, there's something going on with the sleep. It's either insomnia, dysregulated. They wake up between 2 to 4, which is a sign of liver congestion. They're exhausted all day long. It's the cornerstone of good health. If your sleep is not good, you need to dig into why. And also gut bugs can be more active at night, which then, impacts your cortisol levels. So those are the 3 things I do.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for sharing everything you have today. Where can people learn more about you, connect with you, and get involved with the stuff you're doing?
Yeah, they can find me on Get Pregnant Naturally. It's on Spotify and iTunes. And I also have a fertility diet freebie. They can go to Fertility Diet Freebie. So there's fertility foods that are free of the top allergens, so recipes for you to start cooking with your partner this weekend. So fertilitydietfreebie.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and have a beautiful day. Thank you so much, fam, for listening to this episode of the Whole Health with Rob Carney Podcast with our guest, Sarah Clark. So to connect with Sarah and learn more about all the great stuff she's doing, I'm going to put some links in the description box here. So I'd love for you to check those out. Stay tuned in to what she's doing because we need more people on the mission to help people get pregnant naturally and really live a holistic lifestyle. So one of the topics we dove into a lot was, organic superfoods. And so one of my favorite organic superfoods on the market is the Daily Core 4 by Purium. So that consists of the Power Shake, which is the notorious Liquid Sunshine organic green juice, which consists of wheatgrass, spirulina, alfalfa leaf, a bunch of other great things with some good fats in there to allow you to actually absorb those fat-soluble vitamins. A lot of juices don't have any fat. So you can be getting all these great vitamins and minerals, but if you don't have fats for the fat-soluble vitamins, it's all for naught. So that's got the Power Shake. It's got the pre-digested vegan amino acids, the super amino 23s, which are my favorite aminos. They're super absorbable, get you a good pump, great for pre-workout, great for post-workout recovery. And then it comes with the Biomedic, which is removing glyphosate, which we talked about. A lot of the toxic herbicides that are on our foods, the non-organic foods, and a lot of us just have toxic buildup of this herbicide in our body, in our gut. So the Biomedic is designed to remove up to 74% of the glyphosate from the gut in just 6 weeks. So we've got the Power Shake, we've got the Super Amino 23s, we've got the Biomedic, and last but not least, we've got the Apothecary, which we call that the Dream Juice. So that's anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and it has natural melatonin with the tart cherry juice. These are all organic products. So you can get those. I'll put the link in the description box here. You can also check out my website, wholehealthconnects.com/superfood-nutrition. You'll find your Daily Core 4 with the discount code nutrition. You can use that at checkout to save 25% of your order. And also on that website, you can find a bunch of the other superfoods I work with. We'd also mentioned EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, and the challenges that those can have. So I'm also partnering with Aries Tech, and you can go to Aries Tech and save 10% with the discount code WHOLEHEALTH. So there's a whole host of other superfoods, biohacking tools on my website there, wholehealthconnects.com. Check those out. Get yourself a discount code. And it really helps with the podcast. It allows me to help you at a greater level, help our supporters at a greater level, and just allow me to have more time to connect with such great like-minded people like Sarah and many of the guests we've had. So I really appreciate the support. I'm super stoked. This is the first episode of February 2021. This year is only going to get better. So thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. Better yet, have the best day ever. Talk to you soon.